Good evening. Welcome to Costa. My name is Andrew Mwansa, sitting in for Costa Mwansa. My guest tonight is Economic Front President, State Council Winter Kawimba. We discuss the state of national affairs. State Council Winter Kawimba, thank you so much for making time to join us on Costa tonight.
Thank you, Andrew, and good evening, dear viewers.
Let's start with your decision to join the UPND Alliance. Your primary reason was to help the UPND intensify the fight against corruption. How exactly do you intend to help the UPND fight corruption?
Look, this is not the first time that we have seen an attempt, to fight corruption in a country. If you remember, this crusade goes as far back as the post-Chiluba era. The first person who had a bite at this was the late President Levi Mwanawasa. For the first time in this country, we actually came to learn, which we didn't see after President Kaunda lost power. We first came to learn in this country that there could be abuse of office by those that occupy public offices. And it took a lot of courage on behalf of President Mwanawasa to bring this out to the public. Don't forget that President Mwanawasa was a very close friend of President Chiluba. He was his vice president. And for him to have come up with that crusade, which zeroed on his former colleague and his former boss, President Chiluba, took a lot of courage. So this is a continued crusade against the fight against corruption. I saw a bit of it in PF with the President Michael Costa. If you remember, I actually moved a motion in Parliament to remove the immunity on President Rupiah Banda to allow for his prosecution for a number of allegations which were outlined in the motion. And that motion was carried by a simple majority in Parliament. We were to move on to investigate those allegations with the possibility of actually prosecuting Arabi. Unfortunately, Michael Costa died. When Michael Costa died, the ECL government went to bed with the Arabi on grounds that he had campaigned for ECL in Eastern Province, and the same PF members that had voted for the removal of immunity of Arabi on those allegations decided to enter into a consent judgment with Arabi and get his immunity restored. So that fight against corruption was actually collapsed. It was thwarted at that stage. Not much was heard about the fight against corruption under ECL, if anything. I don't remember any specific case. I have to be reminded. And then came UPND in 2021, and what we are seeing now in the courts of law. So we were persuaded as EF, under a resolution of the Central Committee, that this is worth a fight to join. Because, Andrew, unless we can deal with issues of corruption by those that occupy public office, there can be no economic development in this country. All the efforts of trying to revive this economy, of trying to make this economy deliver, will come to zero. So we believe in the economic front that the determination which has been shown by the UPND today to fight corruption is a noble cause that every well-meaning Zambian should join. And that is not to say that we agree with the UPND 100% on everything that they do. But we've come to make a distinction that the country is bigger than those differences. The country is bigger than those wars that may divide the UPND and the economic front in this specific area of fighting corruption.
When you say you don't remember the fight against corruption under the Patriotic Front, I don't know exactly what you mean, because it was under the Patriotic Front that we saw sitting government cabinet ministers get investigated by the law enforcement agencies. Examples are so many to cite from. Ronald Chitotela, Chitalo, who was actually fired, because of corruption allegations. Chimba Kambwili, Kevin Lubinda were among the people that were being investigated while they were sitting cabinet ministers.
Yes. But look at what happened. What were the results of all those investigations? What were the results of those investigations? Zero. And yet, the cases against some of these guys today go back to that period. They go back to that period.
Like which one? Example? Give me an example.
I'll give an example of the former Minister of Justice.
Who was acquitted?
Okay. Yes, who was acquitted, but the matter is still on appeal. So we really don't know whether or not the acquittal will stand or the conviction may follow. But the example I'm giving, or in response to your question, was that yes, we heard about all these things. I didn't hear anything that Chimba Kambwili was removed from office because of corruption. I don't remember Isi saying that. He was just dropped. I don't remember anybody saying that Chitalo Chilufya has been removed from government on account of corruption investigations. No, there was nothing that was announced.
Well, the Honeybee scandal is the one that made the president to drop him, because
yes,
the allegations were that was capped in corruption.
Yes, but that is what the public was saying. The president never said that. That's what the public was saying. They put pressure on ECL over the Honeybee scandal. But ECL did not say that Chitalo Chilufya has been dropped because I want to allow investigation to take place.
Obviously, there's no president who's going to outright say.
Costa said it.
When he fired this particular one because of corruption.
When he fired Chitotela. When he fired Chitotela as deputy minister. When he fired Roger Smuewa as deputy minister. Sata said it publicly. I fired these two because of corruption. He said it. He made it very clear.
You supported the PF, led by Michael Sata, to remove the immunity of President Rupia Banda there, yes, to ensure that they allow for prosecution to take effect.
Yes.
Are you supporting for the removal of ECO's immunity so that the law enforcement agencies can do their job?
I don't want to speak for what I don't know, Andrew. What I know about the Arabi case was that I was charged with the responsibility of framing the motion to Parliament. I asked for evidence from different ministries, particularly the Ministry of Energy, as to what the allegations were. If you went to Parliament and saw a copy of my motion, it outlines allegations one by one, serializes them. So it is not something where we just woke up and said we want to go to Parliament and get the immunity of the president removed. It was actually something that was researched. We thought we had the allegations right. We thought we had the evidence to support those allegations right, and hence the motion to Parliament. So I don't know what is going on now between UPND and PF vis-a-vis the allegations against the ECL. But the RB case was very clear. And I also want to say, to you, Andrew, and say to the viewers out there, even as I did that, even as I was the one who moved that motion, I still maintained a very good relationship with RB. Even after that, I used to go to his house, and have a glass of wine with him. Because my conscience was very clear that what I had done was right.
ECO presided over a corrupt regime?
I think so. If what is coming out in the courts of law now is anything to go by, I think he did, on a very large scale. And in fact, that has come to me with a great sense of shock.
How so?
Well, if you look at the scale of corruption allegations now under the 7 years of ECL, if you listen to the testimony in court, sworn evidence, sworn affidavits, evidence given on oath, most of it uncontested. If you look at the scale of all that evidence and the allegations, surely there was rampant corruption under the ECL administration. I don't think anybody can contest that. I don't think anybody can contest that.
So then why don't you support the idea that President Edgar Lungu's immunity should be suspended or should be removed for proper investigation to be done?
I don't know the allegations against him. I don't have any specific allegations against him.
You wondered earlier on why, not on this interview, but on a different interview, how President Edgar Lungu would manage to buy over 69 vehicles for his son. You wondered how he would have raised such monies within a short space of time that he was president.
Yes.
We've seen also allegations against his family, Chieso Lungu, Tasila Lungu, among the other children belonging to President Edgar Lungu.
Yeah.
You don't believe that those properties are tainted, corrupt?
Well, the courts themselves are saying that. It's not even me saying it. What has happened now is that the courts, again through sworn evidence, it has been established that the Lungus, the wife, the children, have failed to offer evidence on how they acquired those properties in such a short period of time. In fact, I like what one of the judgments said, what the judges said in one of the judgments, which I think is correct. And this is what they said. It is not enough to simply state by way of defense that this money came from my husband, or this money came from my wife, or came from my father, without showing evidence as to how that money came from your father or your husband to you. I think that was the correct position at law. Okay? I think the judgment was correct. You can't simply go and say this money came from Winter. You have to show how that money came from Winter. But over and above that, what does ECO himself say? I gifted my children birthday gifts.
Anything wrong with that?
Sorry?
Anything wrong with that?
Nothing wrong. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. What raises the question is this. And in all fairness, didn't the children have birthday parties before he became president? Surely they did. Surely they did. How much was gifted to them during those birthdays before the man became president? If he showed, if the man were to show that, look, in fact, we are talking about 69 vehicles, 50 of these I gifted to my son before I became president. As a gift, or birthday gifts. You have to use common sense. This is not even about law. This is just common sense explanation. Are we being unfair? No, because when you occupy a public office, you must be accountable to the people. I don't know if you are following the case now that is ongoing about the New York mayor, Eric Adams. There's a case which is going on now in New York. It started about 2 weeks ago. You know the allegations against him? That he used a plane ticket to fly business class from New York through Ankara in Turkey on a private trip to India. And this ticket was bought by a Turkish company, private company. And they're asking the mayor, under what circumstances would you get a ticket from a foreign private company? Under what circumstances? Then they come to discover that in fact the mayor had interfered with the New York City authorities in the inspection of a building which was the Turkish consulate. So common sense. The man is being prosecuted now. So this is what it means to be in public office. You can't simplify it, trivialize it by simply making a statement which does not make you accountable. You are accountable to the public. Whether or not the questions from the public are unreasonable, which sometimes they may be,
You've had issue speak,
but you are entitled to give
that Council Winter Kawimba, obviously through that Voice of America interview where he mentioned that he's been a very successful lawyer, very successful businessman, and most of his monies, he's been a member of parliament, he's been Secretary General like you were, for then the Patriotic Front, he was minister, and he was member of parliament. You don't think he made his money before he became president?
Look, let's run through all that. I was town clerk for Kitwe City Council. I was town clerk for Lusaka City Council. I was Secretary General of PF for more years than ECL. I was Minister of Justice. I was a Member of Parliament for 2 years. Okay? I've been a lawyer for over 30 years now. So I know the parameters of income in all these positions. I know the parameters of income. I know the parameters of income of a Member of Parliament and the parameters of income of a Member of Parliament who is also a minister.
But you don't know the parameters of income for a minister, a Member of Parliament, and a Secretary General who also invests in other businesses.
I know, but look, I know all that. If I was Secretary General from 2009 to 2014. Okay, and I hope this is not turning into a personal interview. You say I was Secretary General for how many? Just a few months. I didn't get paid. I didn't have a salary as Secretary General of PF. I didn't have a salary, and I don't think he did. Now, if that is true, and let's assume we give him the benefit of the doubt, that's the evidence that the courts of law are looking for. And I think to me it's a very simple request to use a much more polite word. Let's not use the word demand. It's a simple request to him. Show this country where the money that you gave to your wife, where the money, colossal amounts of money you gave to your children, show through them how you made this money, or if not, we don't care how you made it, where it came from. But more so because you are occupying a public office.
You think he stole the money?
No. I'm not. The onus is on him. That's what the courts are demanding. The onus is on him, because it is him who is saying the money came from me. It is his family that is saying the money came from this man. So the onus is on them to prove. Nobody is making any allegations of theft or corruption or whatever. But the fact that that question cannot be answered properly and in a manner that is satisfactory according to the benchmarks of evidence in a court of law means that something is wrong somewhere. It's, in my view, Andrew, a very simple process. Very simple. Okay? So nobody is contesting that he was not a top-notch lawyer, you know. Forget about what happened, you know, when he was the legal counsel. Forget about that. Nobody is contesting. Nobody is contesting that, you know, he had a good job. You know, he was the ZCCM company secretary, you know, at one time. You know, he was the legal counsel, I think, in Ziski. You know, he was a legal aid. You know, he has this long stretch, you know, of a career, of careers. Give that to him. But this is about the time when he is in public office.
One of the things that President Hakainde Hichilema, you know, statement made when he became president of this country was that he was going to fight past, present, and future corruption. We've seen pressure intensified on past corruption, especially corruption involving the Patriotic Fund. What are your observations in terms of fighting present corruption under this administration?
I've made one statement by way of contrast, and this is what I've said, that under ECO's PF, not Microsoft's PF, I make a very clear distinction again. Under ECO's administration, we saw corruption. We saw people move from nothing to stinking rich over short periods of time. In the last 2.5 years or 3 years of UPND, I've heard about corruption. I've heard about corruption. I've heard about all sorts of allegations. I've not seen it. I've not seen any MP in UPND who has moved from nothing to parking 20 vehicles at their home. I've not seen any minister.
Perhaps they've been sophisticated.
Yeah, that's the job for the investigating agencies. So I don't want to make allegations where I may sound malicious and I don't know what is going on. I never made these statements. I made the statements about corruption in PF during the Microsoft time. I said there are two vices that are emerging in PF. It was corruption and tribalism. You never heard me make such a statement under ECL. I never made any statement under ECL that there is corruption under ECL. Okay? So I always want to state my facts. And oftentimes, I want to look for evidence to support my facts. I think that is only fair to everybody. So I'll not come here, Andrew, and tell you, oh no, there is corruption here. And when you ask me, how do you know? Then I start to, you know, wearing. No. If I tell you there's corruption here.
About corruption, there's a number of allegations that have come your way, State Council Winter Kabimba,
yes,
especially with you joining the UPND Alliance.
Yes.
As a member of the Alliance, Socialist Party senior member Kelvin Kaunda raises serious allegations against you.
Yes.
That you received contracts from State House for your law firm. This was part of the agreement for you to join the UPND, but also you've seen allegations that perhaps State Council Winter Kabimba is hungry. That's why he's gone to bed with Hakainde Hichilema.
You know, I heard about that. I heard about the interview by Kelvin Kaunda, is he? Okay? And I can tell you that, you know, that is coming from, you know, the leaders in his party. You know, he was just a mouthpiece. I actually contemplated of suing him, but I said to myself, why should I do that? He probably doesn't even own a number of blankets, you know, for me to be, you know, worthy, losing my breath, you know, taking him to court.
Those are serious allegations.
Okay. Which allegation?
The allegations is raising against.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. That I heard about that interview, but the number of times when the leadership in the Socialist Party have raised allegations against me. Okay? Even during ECL, you know what they said? When I was speaking to ECL, they said that I was seen at the State House a number of times going to collect money from ECL. That Robert Chikwelete was my agent, and he had been seen at the State House a number of times going to collect money from ECL. Now, I want to tell you this. I've not been to State House since 2014. The last time I was at the State House was in 2014 when I went to say to Mr. Sata, can you allow me to travel to Northwestern Province to go and campaign in Zambezi district where there was a by-election, the Zambezi West, and the Solwezi Central by-election. I was fired on that trip on my way back. From that time, from August 2014, I've never been to State House. I went to State House in April, May of 2021, and I didn't go to State House. I went to Nkwazi House to meet ECL. And he's alive. Hold on, let me finish. And he's alive today. He can confirm that. So it is not true. So if they were able to fabricate and concoct those stories at the time, and if I was, if I were getting money from, how did that change my life? Would I be surprised that they continue now to say that they have collected money from HH, and that's why, hence, our position to get into the UPNDP, or UPND alliance. We must have decency in this country. I get surprised, Andrew, myself, when I listen to some of my colleagues that are offering themselves for the leadership of this country. And instead of dealing with issues, they want to deal with the personalities. They want to deal, with issues of vilifying others, when they themselves are nowhere near the benchmark of self-righteousness.
They say that because they say no normal opposition at this time could join the UPND.
Why not? The question is why not? The question is why not?
The UPND, have run down this economy. The UPND have become an enemy of the people. So a voice of reason like yourself, State Council Winter can't go, to bed with the UPND. People are shocked and people are surprised with the decision you made.
No. Maybe, but it depends on what you mean by people. Because I can tell you that I've received a number of phone calls from very reasonable citizens of this country saying this is the right thing to do. I've appeared on radio programs and listened to ordinary people in compounds, and they have said this is the right thing to do. So I don't know where you find those people that I can't find myself. I don't know where those leaders that are accusing me of receiving money find those people. Since we made that decision, since I made that, I held that press conference on the 1st of September, I've appeared on radio programs, phone-in programs, and people are phoned in. I remember the last time there's a guy who said, I don't agree with you, but I respect your decision. Very fair. And this is not a guy from the university. This is a guy from the compound. So it means even the people in the compound, they understand what is going on in this country. It is not true, Andrew, that those of us who speak, Oxford kind of English, and those of us, that churn out, concepts, and theories are the most intelligent people that understand this country. No, they are ordinary people, the poor, wretched of the earth of this country, that understand this country very well.
What is in it for you for joining the UPND?
The country. That's what is in it for me. The country. I don't want to see this country slide back, to corruption. I don't want to do that. I have an investment in this country. I've got children in this country. I've got grandchildren in this country. I owe them a duty to bequeath to them a country in which they can live in peace and prosperity.
And that's by joining the UPND?
That is my duty.
And that's by joining the UPND?
For now, yes. If you call that joining. For now, yes. I can't go to UCA. I know everybody that is in UCA. I can't go to the so-called Tons Alliance. I know all the personalities, in the Tons Alliance. There are very few people I don't know in the politics of this country. Very few that I don't know personally, and I want to be fair. I don't know Peter Sinkamba at a personal level. I don't know Jackson Isilavwe at a personal level. I don't know Savoy Imboira at a personal level. I don't know Chichalakateka at a personal level. I know given it will be at a personal level.
Is it hunger
that
has taken you to the UPND?
I know ECAO at a personal level. So
is it hunger that has taken you to the UPND?
I'm answering the question. Now, where is the hunger? Let me tell you, and I'll repeat what I've said before. We own a school as a family. 3 campuses in this country. Do you know how many people we employ? Close to 200, slightly over 250 teachers, diploma holders, and degree holders.
Maybe you want to save those businesses from dying.
No, not maybe. Let me finish. Okay? Go to ZRA. You find that we pay our taxes. We're not like him. These, other fellows, that have been running businesses where they evade tax. I pay tax. I'm a responsible citizen. Go and ask everybody that I've employed at my law firm. And they're still there. They are living. They'll tell you, I pay them, salaries. I've paid them salaries. Go to my farm workers and ask them. I pay them monthly salaries. Not like others, that don't pay salaries, to their workers, and they want to stand on Mount Olympus and they start accusing those of us that are decent, that they are more decent than us, when their record, is checkered. I'm not like that. So what hunger are you talking about? Come to my, to my house. I've got vehicles. I had those vehicles when I was going into PF. I had those vehicles after PF. I refused to take a loan from Parliament when I was nominated as a member of Parliament. I refused to join Michael Sata's cabinet, where I think I was actually entitled to a ministerial position. I refused for 1 year. So, unless you want to be malicious, not you, but unless somebody wants to be malicious, you will not accuse me.
The justification, State Council Winter Kavimba, why people are speaking ill about you. When I say ill, you joining the UPND, you forming hands, joining hands with the UPND is this. They're saying before the UPND came into office,
yes,
things look to be much more better than they are now. Fuel prices have escalated to unprecedented levels. It's double the amount the price that we're buying fuel at in 2021.
Yes.
Food prices, minimum, unprecedentedly gone high. It's now 350 in most parts of the country.
Yes.
Transport has gone high. Everything has gone up, State Council Winter Kavimba. And the people are saying the voices of reason like yourselves ought to be speaking about the things that people are going through, as opposed to speaking the same language as the UPND. Actually, just a few days ago, ECO had a press brief, and you were saying that, look, what you could do for now is at least take back the prices at which I left them. Everything has gone high now. 3 years of the UPND. What are you saying as Economic Front in terms of them delivering, to the promises that they made to the Zambian people?
Look, I have made this statement, and I'll repeat it, that in terms of economic policy, the UPND needs to revisit the economic policies. And I'll tell you the reason why. You can't structure a third world economy using the formula of the IMF. I've not seen it work anywhere in Africa. I don't think it will work in Zambia. That I said very, very clearly. Okay? So UPND needs to revisit its economic policies. However, here's my departure point. Anybody who would argue with me that this country would have been better off today had the PF continued in power would not convince me. So when I listen to ECL talk, that his West was better than this, I disagree. when I see people argue that because UPND has failed here, and therefore logically, which is very warped logic, PF would have succeeded, I disagree. So, the argument that the alternative to the failures of UPND is PF is ridiculous in my view. Ridiculous in my view. The crop of leaders we have or we had in PF and the large-scale grand corruption that we are witnessing today, again I repeat, through the evidence in the courts of law, would not have given progress to this country. And therefore to argue that take the prices back to where you found them. Why did they vote out PF? They voted out PF on a number of benchmarks. One, the high cost of living. Two, corruption, which the people could see. Three, cadarism, which was happening under the watch of the leadership of the PF. Without any sense of responsibility. It was a nightmare. You and I maybe don't use public transport, but those of us who are in politics, it was a nightmare to get on a bus at intercity bus terminus here. It was a nightmare for the poor travelers, intercity. And all this was happening under the watch of police officers who were being beaten by PF cadres in broad daylight, storm a police station, beat up police officers there. No way that came from the leadership of the PF. How can you, in God's name, today, say to anybody that PF would have been a better alternative in this environment? What is wrong with the people? Even if you want to appease people, even if you think that this is wrong. So my position is this, Andrew, that yes, the things that are going wrong in the UPND, but to argue that anybody to stand without shame to support a failed leadership, a corrupt leadership, a leadership that failed, that cultivated lawlessness in this country, and say that today, because this is a failure, that becomes a success. I refuse. Totally. Okay? Let's be serious. This is a country, and this is not kindergarten. We're not playing around. So our decision to join hands with the UPND to fight corruption is to ensure that this kind of administration or regime does not come back again. That crop of leaders... Are you
happy, State Council Winter Kavimba, in regards to where we are today in terms of how the economic structure of this country is running?
I've answered that. That I'm not happy. I've answered that.
But you believe that the PF would have been much more worse than how things are today?
Yes, because I'll tell you the reason why. Because we've been told, I don't have the information, but we've been told that the number of debts that PF left behind, unsettled. The oil companies, the oil that was coming into the country, they were not paying for that oil. They owed, oil companies a lot of money, and that money has to be paid back. PF had defaulted on the Eurobond, some of it which was contracted under my watch. They are defaulted, on that. And this is people's money. And under international law, the succeeding government takes over all the liabilities of the previous administration. Doesn't matter how corrupt it was. So UPND has a duty now to settle those debts. And the creditors will not hear you saying, oh no, those guys were corrupt, They will tell you, Bwana, now you are in the driving seat. They want their money. Because if you don't, there are consequences. if you don't do that. Okay? That is the conundrum that UPND. It's just that, UPND, at times doesn't know how to explain itself. In my view, in some of these cases, they have a good case to put across to the people of Zambia. They have a good case. I was there when Mr. Chikwanda was protesting about the contracting of the Eurobond. I was present in a cabinet meeting. Okay? So we are dealing with an aspect where you have to step backwards in order to step forward. I was laughing yesterday. I saw on social media one of the opposition political parties, put a caption there. Wake up in 2026 and vote out UPND so that you end the load shedding. How ridiculous. If you have a prolonged drought, or drought like we do today, you have it in 2026 in August, people will just go to the polling booth, vote out UPND, and the following day they will have power. How can you even stand, in front of a photo and put such a caption? To convince who? Even a fellow in Mandevu will not believe you. Okay? So we have, let me tell you this. At my age and experience, I've actually come to hate hypocrites more than I hate the devil. Because at least for the devil, I know his character. I don't know the character of a hypocrite. So I've actually come to hate hypocrites in Zambian politics more than I do hate the devil. Because it is these hypocrites, that are destroying the minds of our people. Okay? You can't just vote and then the following day there is no, there is no load shedding. How can you even put that as a campaign advert on social media?
Many have suggested, political scientists have said that it is going to be political suicide for the UPND to go into an election with ECO with the current economic conditions of our people. And they say that HH stands no chance to win ECO on the ballot with its current economic prevailing challenges. Do you agree?
I don't agree. I don't agree. I can tell you that if I stood on the podium, on the podium in 2026 on one side and the PF on the other side,
ECO.
I don't want to personalize, but let's assume it is ECL. They have no chance. I know them too well. I can tell the Zambian people the truth. I can ask the Zambian people the correct questions. And if they find the correct answers to those questions, there's no way they can vote for PF. No ways. Whether it is ECO as a candidate or not.
But how would you think like that, State Council, when your party doesn't have a single councillor, when your party doesn't have a single member of parliament or council chairperson, that you could win the largest opposition political party in the country with over 50 members of parliament, with over 100 councillors across the country? How would you even say that you would win ECL? I'm talking about delivering of the message. Forget about winning first. It may not be EF to win, but certainly PF would not win if I stood on the podium. Even now, if you want, try to organize a program here. Bring me 2 senior leaders of PF, or even UCA, or even Tonsa Alliance. Bring them to this room. And I'll come alone and see if they can beat me to the debate about the character of the individuals that we have in this country. I give that challenge. Like I said earlier, I know most of them personally. I worked with them on a daily basis. I know what they demanded, even when I was acting president and I refused personally. I was in charge of the party and I know them personally without any iota of malice. Okay?
So what I'm saying is that we need to cultivate proper politics in this country. I find it interesting that many people don't even have arguments about this country. The arguments are zeroed on personalities. All of us have strengths and weaknesses. We just differ in terms of degree. So if you know that you live in a glass house, for God's sake, don't throw stones. Winston Churchill says, I've stopped paying attention to what people say. I pay attention to their actions, because behavior does not lie. A lot of my colleagues around in politics, they saw so many good things go into their past, even their present. Even their present. So let's try to shift the politics to issues, because when you shift them to issues, I've given you an example of how I pay my tax. I've given you an example of how I refused to join Satan's cabinet. I've given you an example of how the vehicles that I own now, except for one vehicle, which I bought, which was my ministerial vehicle. All the vehicles that I own now are my personal vehicles. I had them before I went into PF. Get senior members of PF. They have been to my game ranch. I owned that game ranch before I went into PF. I started developing that game ranch in 1998, way before PF was even born. Many of them now have so-called farms because they became ministers under PF.
The eligibility of President Isio to contest the 2026 elections and for him to contest the 2021 elections has resurfaced State Council Winter Coimba. The past week, we've been seeing a back and forth in terms of the court processes.
Yeah.
Many are suggesting that we are simply wasting the court's time because this matter was already determined. I'd like to get your position over the resurfacing of this matter. Isio said President Hakainde Hichilema wants to technically knock him out because he's scared of him, and he stands no chance if they stood together in any election in the future.
Some of these arguments, Andrew, are very interesting. Okay? Some of these arguments are very interesting. The eligibility case came up in the 2020-2021. You remember that? The Constitutional Court, and it was driven by PF. So the opposition that went to the Constitutional Court and said that we think that ECO is not eligible. It was Dan Pule and the group that went to court to get a confirmation from court that ECO had not done 2 terms and therefore he was eligible. The court agreed with them. He went into a contest with HH and lost. The biggest margin ever. Even between Chiruba and Kaunda, there was not such a margin. So, to say that now you want to eliminate me because you are scared that I can beat you, but you have been beaten before. The eligibility case was there in 2020-2021, confirmed him as a candidate, lost badly in that election. But I also want to say that when that judgment was delivered in 2021, if you go back to the record, I actually issued a public statement that I didn't agree with the judgment. I said that judgment, the court was wrong. But because it was the Court of Final Jurisdiction on constitutional matters, I said that is the law. Okay? But I disagreed. And the statement I made was that the minority judgment of Professor Margaret Munarura, who is the president of the Con Court now, was a correct judgment in my view. If you look at the provision, the article in the Constitution for eligibility, I thought that the Constitutional Court had missed the point. I hold the same view today. Okay? So it's not a waste of time, in my view. It's not a waste of time. The right thing must be done, and must be done correctly. This is about a country, Bwana.
How often does the Constitutional Court really, change their position?
It has never happened in the history of this country. But don't forget that the Constitutional Court is very new in our jurisdiction. It came up in 2016 under the Constitutional Amendment Act of 2016. We didn't have a Constitutional Court before that. The highest court was the Supreme Court.
What would be the implication if the Constitutional Court, reverses the decision that they made and said they erred in the decision that
That
they
is
made?
the law. That will become the law.
Any implication on the elections of 2021?
No. It just means that the respondent has lost. It just means that ECL cannot be a candidate. It means that that group to which he belongs, whatever group, they must find another candidate.
Coincidentally, this matter comes shortly after the suspension of the 3 Concord judges, and other critics have argued that the reason for why those 3 judges were suspended is to be able to pave way to ensure that ECO is declared ineligible to contest the future elections. I'd like to get your thoughts as a lawyer and over what is happening now, in our legal system.
I don't want, Andrew, I don't want to discuss things I have no evidence about. That's not my nature. That is not in my character. That is unfair.
You're a seasoned politician.
Okay. Yes. That's why you force people, to just rant. I don't want to come here and rant. I want to have a discourse with you, and with you, through you, with the nation. Okay? I have no evidence as to why the 3 Concord judges have been suspended by the president. Absolutely no evidence. I wish I knew. In fact, my position has been this, that maybe we should change the way the government communicates its decisions, to the people. Okay? What I mean is this, that it is high time that when you have a situation like this, there must be some kind of disclosure that, look, the president has suspended the 3 judges on the following allegations. Like the case, I gave earlier of Eric Adams, the New York mayor. There was an extensive press conference by the prosecution, officers from the Attorney General's chambers.
From what we know so far, is because they were suspended because of how they dealt with the 2016 petition that involved the current president now.
I don't know about that, because even that, you can't punish a judge for the decision that he or she has taken.
People want to complain before the JCC.
Yes, so I don't know the nature, that's why I'm saying that the government would help itself and also help the Zambian people. Because you see, the debate now is over the suspension, not over the allegations leading to the suspension. I wish they could outline the allegations. Then we could be discussing, we could be debating the allegations over the suspension.
Another issue that I want us to talk about, State Council Winter Kabimba, is the fact that just a few days ago, we did see the president, the Minister of Finance, Dr. Sokotwane, present a 217 billion kwacha budget, and obviously many getting to punch holes in this budget, stating that it does not speak to the issues that are currently prevailing. Obviously, this budget comes amidst severe drought and prolonged power cuts that the country is currently experiencing. Now we've stabilized. We have 3 hours of power and about 21 hours of load shedding. I'd like to find out what the position of the economic front is over the 2025 budget, and do you feel it does speak to the current economic challenges?
A budget, from my experience, is always a debatable document. There's no budget which would win you unanimous support in a country. Way back from UNIP days, if Coca-Cola is increased by 5 ngwe, there was an outcry. They should have just increased it by 2 ngwe. If Moss is increased by 10 ngwe, there was an outcry. They should have just increased it by 5 ngwe. So a budget is always contested. It has different views expressed around it. And this one cannot be an exception. It can't be an exception. So there are people that agree with the benchmark set in the budget, and the others that think that they are unachievable. In fact, I found it interesting. For the first time, there was a financial consultant, I think, who came on TV the following day and said the anticipated 6.6% of growth is overambitious. Because he said, looking at the variables around, and what is going on, drought, and that kind of thing, he didn't think that the anticipated growth as projected in the budget presentation was achievable. I'm not an economist, but I agreed with him. I said, yeah, I think the guy is right, because he gave reasons, that these variables militate against any dream that you can achieve a 6.6% growth, GDP, thing. And I think, the guy was right. So it depends on which area of the budget you want to pick. I have a problem myself with the CDF, and this has been my position for my PF days. I've always argued that money for CDF must go to local authorities and not to some small committee called the CDF committee. Okay? Secondly, there is no uniformity in evaluating the impact of the use of this money in constituencies to bring about development in these areas. There's a bridge which they are doing now under CDF on the way to my farm. The rains are just a few weeks away from today, and I can tell you that that area will be impassable, because the bridge is just a quarter done under CDF. Secondly, CDF has produced very short work because of this, this principle that, give power to the people, give people to local contractors, in the rural areas where there are no skills. Okay? So, it's okay to play politics, but you can't play politics with the development because it has far-reaching consequences.
Do you think
at the end of the day,
this is one of the UPND's flagship project, CDF, obviously increasing it annually by huge margins? You don't think they say that this is a game changer and people appreciating it, especially in the rural, in the rural?
I don't know. I'm just giving you an example. Again, I want to be factual. There's a small bridge which they are constructing under CDF. I went to the farm 2 weeks ago, about mid-September. I found it is in the same condition of development or construction. I was there, the whole of last week, same state of construction. I found a few people, and there are some crushed stones packed, whatever, and some quarry dust. I found it in the same state. So I'm talking about CDF, which I have seen. I'm not talking about CDF, which is in Kaputa or Shangombo. What I have seen in my area. There's hardly anything there to justify 30 million kwacha that went into that constituency. Nothing at all. The district administration which is in Shibunji district here, has remained incomplete from the time Michael Sata left it to date. There are structures there, you know, of staff houses. The villagers have started stripping the iron sheets from those structures. CDF. Nothing has happened. What is the CDF which can't complete that project? From 2014, you tell me after 2021, you know, when CDF was increased, you know, from 26 to 30, you know, now to 36, where is the evidence of that CDF? Again, I'm talking to you about something that I have seen. No conjecture, no malice, no pettiness. Something that I've seen.
As we conclude, State Council Winter Kawimba, historian Dr. Seshua Shishua has on several times accused President Hakainde Hichilema of using lawfare to undermine our democracy. I'd like to find out what your observations are. Do you think this is true?
Lawfare means what? I've read that, you know, that word. Lawfare means what?
Using the law to undermine democracy.
Look, Seshua is a friend of mine, you know, but sometimes I don't agree with him. And I think he knows that I don't have to agree with him all the time. Just like he doesn't have to agree with me all the time. Okay? There are aspects of the law that really should be applied as they are. And this idea, you know, that everything that happens must be personalized, I find it very difficult. And I'll give you an example. X is being prosecuted, and let me give you a living example. Bowman Lusambo is being prosecuted for charged with interfering with a witness. What do you hear from his camp? It is HH that wants Bowman Lusambo convicted. Okay? He is acquitted. And he says, oh, I thank God, you know, that I've been acquitted. So now it is not HH who has acquitted him, it is God. Listen to the logic. Okay? Lawfare. When he is arrested, it is HH who is trying to use the law to get Bowman out of politics or get him into jail so that he's out of politics. When he's acquitted, the credit goes to God. Not to HH, whom we accuse of having thrown him into prison. So I find these arguments, you know, very, very interesting. The point is this, that,
and it's not only Dr. Seshua that has expressed concern around our democracy. The church has expressed concern. Oasis Forum, the Law Association of Zambia, Chapter 1 Foundation, among very prominent, you know, organizations in this country. Even organizations outside the country have expressed disappointment at how this administration, you know, is running our democracy. Actually, they're saying they're shrinking our democratic space.
You know what one philosopher said? The fact that everybody believes in it does not mean that it is true. And the fact that only a few people believe in it does not make it false. Okay? And I'll give you an example. I always like giving living examples. In 2013, the American embassy here in Zambia, through the ambassador Marcus Torreira, came to my office as the Minister of Justice and brought me a document. And he said to me, here is a dossier, a document that we have sent to our Congress in the US, accusing PF of human rights abuses. Hardly 1 year in office. The church had joined in that. So he left the document with me. I went home, walked through the document. I went to Mr. Sata as president, and I said, there's a document here, and I would like you to give me authority to respond to it. And he said, please go ahead. I went back, walked through the document, paragraph by paragraph by paragraph by paragraph, and managed to debunk most of the allegations. And I wrote to Max Torreira. I sent the document to him. And I published it in the Post newspaper so that everybody could read it. The story I got later was that, in fact, and I challenged him under a covering letter. I said, send this to Congress, where you send your first document. Send it to Congress. You know, there is this misrepresentation. There is this thing of trying to look down on African leadership, that, you know, there are others that know this country better than you and I do. I find it very insulting that at my age, I've lived in this country, I've participated, you know, in the politics of this country. I need to hear it from somebody from Western Europe or the United States that I'm not running, you know, my affairs properly. Okay? That because the church has said it, therefore it is right. That because chapter X has said it, therefore it is right. I think we must change this attitude.
You think Zambia's democracy is growing under this administration?
No. Democracy does not grow in one day, Andrew. It doesn't grow in a day. The United States democracy is over 250 years old, from 1776. They're still arguing about whether or not this is democratic or not. Trump himself now is saying, you know, it is undemocratic to try to stop him from participating in an election, because he thinks he's very popular. So the fact that there is a pitfall in one area of democracy or the other area of democracy does not necessarily mean that democracy is not there. Democracy is a complete, you know, thing. It has a lot of branches in it. The fact that you carry one arm as a human being and the other one you have lost it in a road traffic accident does not mean that you stop being a human being.
State Council Winter Kawimba, President of the Economic Front, thank you so much for making time to speak to the Zambians tonight on Costa.
Thank you very much, Andrew, for the invite, and thank you for this discourse. And thank you, viewers out there.
Well, my guest has been Economic Front President, State Council Winter Kawimba. We'll be discussing the state of national affairs on behalf of the entire production crew. My name is Andrew Mwansa. Thank you so much for watching.
Costa was brought to you by FQM Trident Limited, a subsidiary of First Quantum Minerals Limited.